Sharing our stories connects us. Listen and be connected. Join us for the conversation meeting weekly at the intersection of community and culture. Hosted by Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter. Welcome, everybody, to this your Wednesday Hump Day, Hump Hour edition of The Conversation. I am your host, Mario Nunez, one of your hosts, and the other is seated alongside of me. That would be
Joe King Carter.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, everybody listening out there in the 7 counties or so that pick up our signal. I know that this is one of those days when everybody's a little bit on edge as we have a meteorological phenomenon that is rapidly forming and becoming formidable. 2 words that have the word form in it. I don't know what that means, but we do know that it's something that we even though we here in Florida are quite accustomed to, we just kind of need to be cautious, right, Joe?
Oh, absolutely. And we can't be snared into the old rhythms because the climate is changing, as we know. And it used to be that a hurricane would form, and it would take days and days and days and a week. It's going to get here. This one is way down south of Cuba, and it's immediately going to be here in a day. So that gives you an idea of how hot the water is and how fast they're moving.
And we've all become amateur meteorologists, and we fancy the weather because we have a lot of it here. But this one's going to spool up as they do. Especially when they're out over the Gulf waters that are warm. I don't need to tell you that. You've been watching the Weather Channel, and Jim Cantore does a much better job than I could ever do telling you about the weather. And I don't know about Jim Cantore. You know, he was a normal-sized guy for a good little while, and then I think my man got into the needle, and the next thing you know, he's like buff and gigantic and huge. And but he's one of the original guys there.
That's right. Well, he might just be working out.
No, he's working out. There's no doubt he's working out. But I think he's enhanced. There's something enhancing his workout. Well, while we're on the subject of today's meteorological event that's at our doorstep, let me just remind everybody that we have some very viable and important emergency equipment here available at WMNF. We have the rechargeable battery-less, I guess you could say. It does not require batteries. It's rechargeable. It's an emergency radio, AM, FM, inclusive the weather band. You can charge it with your computer USB port. It does have a hand crank. And listen, if anybody out there is in need of an instrument like this to keep them connected, because we're probably, unfortunately, going to lose power, we have them available here at WMNF Studios. They're available for $30 today only. The caveat is you need to come pick them up by 6 o'clock this evening because things will get a little bit weird this evening. But so,
yes, and also, may I say, everyone, these little radios are quite amazing because they're hand cranked, they're solar powered, and they're USB connected. But the hand cranking feature is amazing. What this means is you lose power, there's no electricity, you can connect with the world and find out what's happening. And for $30, and we're really, WMNF, as both of us know, we're really doing this morning, just today, to offer people a possible solution to help them.
It's a community service that we're very proud to offer to our community. And Joe didn't mention, but they're very portable. They fit in your pocket.
They're very small.
Yeah. They're small. So it's all things good. If you need one, call us here. We will get that. We'll make that available to you. You've got
and it has a flashlight.
Yeah. Oh, it's
an amazing little device.
Yeah,
folks.
It's like the Swiss Army knife of emergency radios. Can I get a bell ring right away with the Swiss Army knife of emergency radios? We are simulcasting right now on Facebook as well. So, we hope that you get a chance to call in today because we do have a fascinating guest in studio. Hey, Joe, introduce us to your pal. I've met him, but I think it would be more appropriate if you introduce us.
Oh, okay. Well, it's my great pleasure. I have known Louis for a short while in life, and Louis is, we're going to talk a little bit about his life. He is someone that if you are in the art scene, in the exhibition scene, in the gallery scene, anywhere in the St. Pete and Tampa area, I assure you, you know Louis. He is a standard element in all of those shows and has been a commentator, a writer, and many other things. We'll talk about that. So he is known to the community, the art community locally, and I would like to say welcome, Louis.
It's good to be here.
Louis Gotardi, everybody.
Louis Gotardi. And so in that sense, let's go back to the beginning. You and I chatted a little bit about this. What is the derivation of the name Gotardi, the surname?
Well, the story I got was from a rabbi, and a German rabbi, who told me that the name in German means heart of God, and it's linked to some sort of priestly class. And he also explained that in Italy, the multiple of Gotards is Gotardi. And
Octopus, octopi.
exactly. And in France, it's Godard, like the American Rocketeer. And it was also a tribe of barbarians, which I'm sure is the part that I am linked to.
And if I may interject, because we are doing radio today, Luisito, if I may say so, today you are wearing the part, because today you look the hair is a little bit on edge a little bit, the beard is coming in. I love it. It's very bohemian, and yes,
And
today,
could be priestly as well as barbarian.
And could be barbarian.
Yeah.
Hey, Joey.
There you go.
Now you're getting deep.
Yeah.
Now you're getting
I
deep.
had
we
no
go.
idea hair was left.
Well, there's a little bit on top there.
So your the Gotardis in this case ended up in Cuba, and this is your homeland. Let's talk a little bit about that, because you are a Cubano and you grew up there, and kind of give us some insight. And what did your parents do in Cuba, may I ask?
Well, let me backtrack to before Cuba.
Please.
They started out in Switzerland, and at the same time that there was a potato famine in Ireland, there was one in Switzerland. And it was causing, of course, a dearth of food and money. And the family had just inherited a farm from another Gotardi, and they sat at the big dining room table, and just like a cartoon, they folded out the big map of the world, and they got together, and the young ones got together. The others were just going to stay. And where are we going? And they sat there
And at this point, they're still in Switzerland.
and argued. And finally, the majority of the family decided, look, there's Australia. That's a place to go. I mean, there's no one. We could start like everybody else is starting in Australia. So they decided on Australia. But my paternal grandmother, who was 16 at the time, and a contrarian, I can't imagine that, but she said, Australia? I'm not going to Australia. So she took her share of the inheritance, pointed to Cuba, and left for Cuba
I see.
with no relatives, nothing else at 16.
Wow.
It turned out that she was a spiritist, a medium.
Okay.
She gets there, she opens a studio, and she makes rocking money.
Of course.
And she married a Swiss guy, my grandfather, and who had been to Cuba for the same reason.
And that's how the family got
That's how it
to
happened.
Cuba. And quite a migratory path that is, Louis.
Long way.
I mean, you're going from, the northern climes, light-haired, light-eyed people.
Mountains.
Mountains. Although you have montañas in Cuba, certainly, but you're in the tropics. You went from one extreme almost to the other.
From an alpine environment.
Thank you. Down to
a Caribbean
to
environment.
Caribbean beaches and you watch your sunscreen, and all of a sudden you have to do all of this. So that's amazing to me. So that's your paternal grandmother, correct?
Right.
So
my grandfather was an interior decorator, and I remember his store was big.
Uh-huh.
They made their own brands of things. All I remember really are the lampshades, that he would spend a lot of time explaining the lampshades.
So they were rugged individualists, as we would refer to them, and they also had the spirit of adventure because, pointing to Cuba on the map from Switzerland, that's quite a leap of faith.
Never having seen it, having
The
no
language, the
idea,
culture, the food,
and 16 years old.
and 16.
I would have been scared at 16 to make a leap like that.
Well, but maybe your story about her being a spiritualist or a mentalist, in that regard, kind of helped her give her that confianza, kind of helped her steel her back and say, me and all of my friends can do this. I mean, what does that take?
And they were strange Cubans. I mean, they were definitely not Cuban,
Right.
very European. And they were radicals from day one. I think my grandmother from birth, but
Can we affix a year to this? Can we affix a time period, a year, more or less?
turn of the century.
Okay, 1900s.
Maybe right before
Right.
right before World War One.
Okay, right after the turn of the century.
So then your parents are actually born as native
As Cubans.
Cubans.
Yeah.
And this was your grandmother was your mother's mother or your father's mother?
Paternal, you said.
Oh, they were Gotardis.
The paternal.
Paternal. Yeah, paternal.
Right.
And on my mother's side, they come from an island off Spain called Mallorca
Of course.
Of course.
and a little town called Plasencia.
Ah,
And
Plasencia.
the Plasencias were fruitful because there's tons of them.
Yes.
Yeah.
And in Cuba, I don't know if this is true for everybody or not, but on my mother's side, they worship French things. I don't know whether that's a Spanish.
Well, wasn't Cuba referred to as the Paris of the Caribbean? So,
Yes.
because of its high stature in society and culture, and the French
Yes.
were such a dominant influence. Am I
Yes.
close?
Well, that's why the King of Spain referred to Cuba as the pearl of the Caribbean.
That's right.
That's why there's, unlike
Paris
all
and
the
West-
other island countries, all that great architecture is there because of this influx of a variety of cultures. And there are many Cuban families that are German, that are Jewish, that are Chinese people called Chinos live in Cuba. You can get fried rice. There's
The original fried rice.
Yeah. So, but it was a very cosmopolitan part of the world.
100%. And being a port city, everything comes in and comes out. So yes, the French influence. Did you remember that as a
They all
child?
spoke French. They all
Really?
learned French and spoke French.
How about that?
Not to me, because I had no idea what they were talking about. But
Right.
that was pretty amazing. And you mentioned architecture. My dad was an architect.
Oh, okay.
And he was fascinated with Bauhaus and ended up making a lot of private residences and even government buildings. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When Fidel took over, he named my dad to be the head of the Ministry of State in Architecture,
Wow.
which later brought us problems, but
Yes.
it was an honor that we didn't
So he
want.
was sought after for his of course, but he was sought after for his skills and his acumen and his ability to get things done more than likely. And Fidel recognized that and
he
said,
was
"Listen,
not political.
right,
My parents were too radical to be political.
right, keep your head down." Yeah.
Right.
It,
Yeah.
No, not your head, Louis, but your parents had to keep their head down.
Yeah.
Okay. And they, I went to a religious school, but my parents, the only time I ever saw them fighting was, who's going to take the kids to church?
On
Because they didn't want to go.
Sundays. Yeah. Mhm.
So it's like they drew the short straw. And when I went with my dad, and we usually would go with a cousin of ours, and we had to look straight at the altar, because if we met eyes, we started laughing, and that we got thrown out a couple of times.
Sure.
So
A little bit of a not a sham, but maybe so, because you knew that at your home Monday through Saturday, it wasn't necessarily a discussion, but for the purposes of keeping up appearances in the community, you had to be a participant. You had to play.
my mother was a mathematical physicist,
Sincero,
for real.
like trained.
Like Yes, and she graduated with her PhD in the 40s.
Come on now, Louis.
Seriously.
Wow.
What are you
Louis.
telling us, man?
Well, now you understand why
yes.
I don't have a lot of ambition after seeing that.
Let's get a bell ring on that.
There we go.
That was very, very well played, Louis. Very well played.
Let's go ahead and blame our parents for our lack of ambition. That works for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So your father probably knew the Alfonsos.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So that's
Another family of architects.
and good friends of
And great
ours.
friends of ours,
Some
yeah.
of them. We don't know.
Certainly
I don't
Tony.
know Carlos personally, but his brother Tony is a good friend of
Dear
both
friend.
of ours, and of course his father designed Tampa International Airport. So your parents are at this kind of high level of.
They were highly technical people, but
Yes.
with that European influence.
Right.
They were not merchants, you know what I mean? And they had no interest in any of this stuff.
They were academicians, it sounds like. They were more thoughtful, deep thinkers rather than trying to be out there, selling aguacates.
And they were not conformists. They didn't really want to be like everyone else.
Yeah, they brought that with them.
So you grow up. You're born in the late 40s.
1949.
Here we go.
And you're growing up in Cuba, and then comes the Revolution of 59. You're 10 years old?
Yes.
And how old were you when you left Cuba?
Oh, 10.
You left on the revolution.
Yes.
Okay.
The way it happened was Fidel's troops rolled into Havana. He held back because he was mortally afraid of combat. He was. And they also wanted to preserve him to govern.
Well, they saw what happened to Jose Marti. What are you
Yeah.
doing putting him out on the horse in front?
Yeah,
Come
right.
on now.
Yeah.
Right. He's too valuable.
He's dressed in black
Right.
and he's on a white horse and he's riding in front.
Yeah,
Are you
right.
serious?
Well, and what happens is he comes in. That was quite a night. I lived in a place called El Vedado, which I have never been back to, and we had tanks rolling on the streets, shooting, people screaming that were
Wow.
wounded. I mean, just terrible. And in the middle of the night, we were all in the bathroom of the house. We were in the bathtub. There's no power. There's candles. The two maids are praying. It looked like a medieval scene. My mother suddenly stands up and says to my dad, I don't care whether you come or not, but a year to the day, if this is not fixed, I'm out of here with the children.
My boy. How many siblings? We hadn't discussed that.
Just my sister and
Okay.
I.
Okay.
And that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
A year to the day, December 31st of 59, I am on an airplane, a turboprop, Electra, something or other, on my way to Miami. In the middle of the trip, the stewardesses bring out some kind of drink because it was midnight. So I left in 59 and I landed in
New
60.
Year's. Happy New Year's.
Wow.
And I
Wow.
remember the first thing
Interesting.
when I was in Miami International was the Americans. They look so wooden, stiff compared to Cubans who were like always dancing. If they were alive, they were dancing. And the Americans looked like Pinocchio grown old. And 10 years later, I was that wooden. Okay.
So they converted you instead of the other
It
way
just
around.
happened. It
Yeah.
was just context.
Well, I think now an argument could be made that it's completely swung the other way 180 degrees, right?
Well, you know, in
And
life-
Miami's a super big international city
In
anyway.
life, you accrete things and you slough off things.
Correct.
That's right.
That's great. That's
As
a
you
great way
go.
to say
So
it.
you,
Sure.
you change. And it was interesting.
So when
Miami-
you got here, did you speak any English at all? Did you have to learn English?
Yes, I did. I
Okay.
know how to speak English. And what I knew was this is spot, see spot, run, spot, run. That was it. And I went from there. Mm-hmm. But, we were about 2 years ahead for the same grade
Oh, academically.
academically of an American
What you
school.
were exposed to, sure.
I went to a first-rate religious school in Cuba. It was called La Salle,
Mm-hmm.
and it was run by French priests who were hard-headed totally rigid dudes. But if I had to do it over again, I would send myself to the same school.
Nice base, right? Nice base from which to
What
leap off into.
It doubled my universe.
Yeah.
Because suddenly I had what my senses could perceive, and I had what my head could invent. So for that, I'll forever be grateful. Even if, I kind of like the lives of the saints and the simple religious things, but I knew that didn't wash with my parents, so odds are it wasn't real. But it served very well. So even though I couldn't speak very well, I already knew what they were teaching for 2 years ahead of time. So I had no problem.
It gave you the opportunity to catch up with your linguistics, with your language.
Right. 2 years ahead of time, I came within one round of winning the spelling bee for Dade County.
Wow, Luis, we're learning too much about you today.
And
this is great.
I see pride on his face still.
Of course, of course. Well, why wouldn't he be prideful?
Of course.
Older sister, younger sister?
Younger.
Did you guys lean on each other while you were here in your new environment to help get through it, or are you guys still close? Or is she still with us?
She's still with us, and we're not close. But, I never realized when it was happening how traumatic exile was.
Yes.
Even though I came over as a tourist.
Yes.
And even though my parents had money, we never really were.
You weren't impoverished? You weren't
nothing.
In the classic refugee sense?
Right. But we were rare in 1960. There weren't that many Cubans. And I remember the kids in a grade school asking me, did you wear loincloths or grass skirts? These are American kids in Miami.
Having no experience, knowing nothing about Cuba.
Had you ever seen a car before you came here? I said, I don't know. My father drove Jaguars. What does yours drive? And it was just bizarre. But it also gave me a very good idea for later in life of how each of us lives in a bubble.
Right.
In a sense, it may be transparent. It's like a window. You get to see what's outside, but you live in a bubble.
You're still in your silo. Yeah, you're still in your own
Absolutely.
domain.
So...
No, I was going to take him to the next progression.
So you're in Miami, and how long are you in Miami, and what happens there, and when do you leave Miami?
Well, I was in Miami from being 10 years old to 18.
Graduation from high school.
I graduated in 67 from high school, and I liked college. I really could have stayed in a college
environment. A few more years there? A few more years?
For the next
decades.
As it was, I managed to stay 9 years and only come out with 1 degree. But
and where did you go to school?
I enjoyed it. I went to Miami-Dade Junior College. It was brand new and looks now so quaint. I went to USF.
Did you take any social studies classes while you were there at Miami-Dade? I don't know, was it North or South? Do you recall?
South. It was brand new. It was the first year it opened.
I want to say maybe because we've talked about this here before, because we had, my primo was on the show a few weeks back. His father, Manuel Mendoza, was a sociology professor there, emeritus, for many, many years, 30 years, in fact. And he was partially responsible for the creation of Que Pasa USA, the TV show that still today enjoys syndication. But I just wondered if you might have sat in one of his classes.
I don't remember.
Okay. It was a little while ago.
Well, it also was the 60s, and
And there was a lot going on.
So some things have...
What do they say, Joe? What do they say? If you remember the 60s, you weren't there?
Exactly.
That's right, yeah. And Louis was...
a participant.
Was participating in a lot of things, I assume.
Of course.
But, it gave me a lot of freedom. The fact that my parents didn't even blink. It's like, oh, he'll grow out of it. And I could study anything. I could sign up for any class. I switched majors.
There was no guidance there like St. Louis.
3 or 4 times.
There you go.
But I was feral. I mean, it was like whatever caught my attention or curiosity, I launched into.
Mm-hmm.
head first. And I'm a very curious person.
Well, we just can let our imagination run wild with that.
I'm
Louis.
sure, yes.
Let's do a little station ID here for just a minute.
Okay.
We've got somebody special that was here last week and would like to remind everybody.
That's right.
Hi, I'm Mike Knapp, and you're listening to The Conversation with Mario Nunez and Joe King Carter on WMNF 88.5 Tampa.
And if you'd like to join the conversation today, what a great name for a podcast or a radio show.
That name.
We're talking to the fascinating Luis Gotardi. You can call us at 813-239-9663. You can send us a text at 813-433-0885. We always are looking for your emails. That would be dj@wmnf.org.
So, Louis, we are
Out of
already
college.
We are at the halfway point.
Oh, boy.
And we've got a lot to cover.
Yeah, we do.
So
step on the gas.
So I want to make sure that we get you up to Tampa, which apparently you were because you were at USF. And I want to start talking a little bit about how you, with this curiosity you have, which, by the way, I relate to a great deal, you end up going down many, many paths. I did the same thing, I think, in a way. We're parallel in that sense. How did you sort of move toward the arts? Because I assume you were interested in things that weren't the arts at some point.
True. And the way I get to the arts is very early, because my mother had been a ballerina until she got too old, 29, with the Ballet Nacional de Cuba with Alicia Alonso. And she was into the arts up to her ears. And when she got married, she didn't really practice physics anymore. She didn't really do anything except check my dad's calculations as an architect.
What an incredible woman your mom sounded like she was.
Yeah, I would like to have met this woman, yes.
The
physicist
to have
ballerina.
to have interviewed her would have been fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely.
My favorite story about my mother.
Please.
I learned to read by instinct. I have no idea how I learned it. I watched TV commercials, and I'm in the back of my dad's stately Jaguar holding onto a velvet rope. I used to surf from back there. They always wanted me to sit down. There were no baby seats or anything.
Seatbelts, right.
But I was a little tiny kid. And suddenly I saw a sign and I read it. Don't know how. It just happened. And I called it out loud. My parents sat there looking at each other. And they go, look at that one. What does that say? And I read it. Next thing I know, I had like 40 child books.
He's ready.
And a new shelf in my bedroom. I read all the books in like 3 days. And I'm like, Mom, these books are horrible. They're boring. I can't do this. I'm sorry I started reading. And she goes, No. Tomorrow, we're going to get books. The next day, we go to the University of Havana bookstore, with which she was very familiar. We walk in, and I'm like in a cathedral. And she goes, you can pick as many books as you want that you can get to the counter in one trip. And when you're done with those, we'll be back. And that happened dozens of times before I left Cuba.
What a gift.
I was reading graduate school books on things that fascinated me.
Suffice it to say that the conversations you're saying when they said, what's that say? What's that say? All of those were in Spanish because,
right.
You're bilingual, yes, but the language spoken at home was always Spanish.
Right.
And were the books in Spanish as well?
Yes.
Of course. Wow.
And that was Mom.
No, she was a gift. She was a gift to not only the world at large, but to you and your sister.
Solutions. It wasn't just, just try to make the best of it or anything.
As many as you could carry, Luisito. As many as you could carry and get them to the counter. And then when you finish with those, we'll be back.
That's right.
What a great story.
I have memories of inching to the counter with
because you had so many.
loads of
Don't
books.
drop any. Don't drop any.
Wow. Having a parent like that, having a mother like
Supportive,
that
yeah.
is such a wonderful thing, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we're in Tampa now.
Yeah.
And you're interested in a number of things, but
USF?
The arts.
arts.
So my mom was into the arts. I was like 4 or 5 years old before I went to my first opera with Mom. And my dad really wasn't into the arts. And strangely, my dad was a Republican. Mom was like radical to the end.
Mm-hmm.
And I got into the arts when I was a tiny kid. We went places, saw exhibits.
With a sketch pad and a pencil, or was it a different kind of introduction
Did
to
you
the
see
arts?
yourself as an artist or not?
Great
It was-
question.
well, I saw myself as I was a bio unit with my mom. I was kind of a mama's boy in that sense. And whatever she thought, I would align myself with.
Mm-hmm.
So if she was into the arts, it must be a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it must be part of life. And that sort of stayed with me. So I was already into the arts. When I heard there was a concert, I would go to it. Or an exhibit I could get to, even at the junior college, I would go see everyone. And I was still not part of the arts, but the arts are definitely part of me.
Mm-hmm. Understood.
It was like a tradition.
You hadn't started your participation in the arts,
Right.
but you were absorbing all of it in all of its forms, right?
But so today, in addition to the other dimension of your life that we're going to address, which is how you have been an art observer, a writer, and other things, I see you as an artist because I see your photography. When did all that start to happen throughout the years?
Did Mom put a camera in your hands? Please tell us she did.
Actually, no.
Because that just makes the story better.
Actually, it was my dad.
Okay.
My first spiritual connection to the arts on my own, not through my mom, was we, of course, had an Encyclopedia Britannica. I mean, I think they were standard issue then.
Right.
When you were born, you got one.
Right.
And I was leafing through the tomes, and all of a sudden I got to the flags section. And
Colorful.
I didn't think at all of the flags as symbols for nations or politics or identity. None of that occurred to me. What occurred to me was the incredible careful design. Since I saw my dad designing buildings right and left,
Right.
and we would go and inspect them and stuff, I knew something about design. And that right there is when I saw it, when it connected with me.
May I interject, Joe? And I think if you know me well enough, and the people that are out there listening to my voice know me well enough, may know what's about to fly out of my mouth. This is the reason that we're meeting today, Luis. Not just because you're Joe's pana and he and I are close. And I'm just thinking that we're probably going to draw a little bit closer, you and I as well. But I have been on this mission, very singular mission. You mentioned the word flags. People don't really quite grasp the importance of the symbolism of flags at large, writ large. And I am on a personal quest to change the city of Tampa flag because I believe that every great city deserves a great municipal flags. So we're going to just push that right over here to the side. That's the postre that you and I are going to eat later, right? El arroz con leche, that dulce de leche. But I would like to lean on you for some help in that regard because I know it's going to be a heavy lift and I know that it's going to be something that might take a minute, but it sounds to me like your fascination with flags is just like mine because they're just so important in their and they're beautiful and they should be. Okay?
Yes.
So that I'm exposing that to you, Louis. You didn't know that about me, but if you look at our flag, if you look at our City of Tampa flag, it is pretty bad. Okay. We'll leave that there, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to call in and comment on that.
He said hideous, so you're...
No, Luisito. You're a man after my heart, brother. You're a man after my heart. We will talk later and do a lot of work, and you're going to be my main go-to source.
So this connection between the flag, the images of flags, and your father and art, what happened?
Eventually that leads to cameras. When I told him how much I liked the flags, he brought up an art book. I don't know from where. two libraries, his and then Mom's, in a different section. And he opened this book, and the thing that was there was Winged Victory, a headless sculpture found on the island of Santa Cruz. I still remember
Very
it.
famous.
And I looked at that thing, and I had my first artgasm right there.
Let's go ahead and write that down because I love the sound of that.
I couldn't voice anything. My dad
Yes,
said, "What do you
yeah.
think?" And I was like,
Yeah, Verklempt.
I know that feeling. It is
Apoplectic, better
literally
say.
speechless. Yes.
Yeah, apoplectic.
And so you got interested in art. You came to USF.
And it simply went on. The camera came one day when I'm 7 years old. My dad goes, "I've got to photograph this thing that's going up." He had his own little construction company. And we drive over there, and he starts photographing with a Rolleiflex. And he handed me a battered old from the 30s Leica 3F. Had nicks and dents all over it. And I go, "What do I do?" He goes, "Press the button. I've said everything else." And I look around, and I couldn't. What do I photograph? Film must be expensive. I shouldn't waste any shots. But there was this mound of sand that was set aside for mixing cement. And I was looking at it. It was that hard Cuban light, and it was just glistening like diamonds. And that was the first serious photograph ever I took.
Wow.
Black and white?
Oh, yeah, that black and white, absolutely.
Sure.
So this was actually implanted in you at the age of 7.
Oh, yeah, and I photographed. I mean, as soon as the camera emptied, Dad had another roll of film in it, and I was ready to go.
You were on your way.
All those photographs were lost, left in Cuba.
Oh, wow. So were you, did you do photography at USF? Were you?
No, I didn't. I had a camera, and I photographed quite a bit. But then, between the girls and the 60s and all, I kind of slacked. And
And the 70s gave you reason to slack even more.
yeah. And I didn't really resume until maybe 77, 78. I had a girlfriend who saw the camera that I had in a drawer and said, "What? This is a piece of..." And she goes, "I've got a camera you can use." And she gave me a camera that had belonged to her dad. And then I resumed using that camera. I just really started getting back into photography. And that was when I bought my first photo magazine ever.
Wow.
To really start learning the fine technique. Did you do any darkroom work? I mean, did you...
I ended up doing darkroom work.
Sure.
And, but what's funny is you learn, whenever people talk about photography, they're hung up on the technical.
Mm-hmm.
The technical is by far the easiest thing. The technical makes shifting a manual car look easy.
Sure.
There's nothing to it. I mean, it takes time. It's a process. You can't jump or anything, but it's the seeing. Beginning and end, it is the seeing.
It is.
The rest of it, you could do it with a chisel and a hammer if you had to.
But all art is, and this is my belief, and in fact, Mike Knapp, I'm trying to say this, said this last week, it's the seeing.
Correct.
And the seeing is what it's all about, and how the technique you use to translate that is something that you can get very involved in. But it's actually your vision, right? Your vision. And particularly with photography, which fascinates me, because that is the thing that makes a photograph powerful, is capturing that angle, that light, that moment exactly. Just a shift, and it's not the same image at all. Yeah.
An inch. As a matter of fact, I have a friend who I will spare naming. And
come on, Louis.
When we go out shooting, he always goes,
"Hey,
I got to step in your footprints here to see exactly what you're seeing." And I'm like, "Go ahead."
Yeah.
And he tries to get the same picture I got, and you know, he goes to some of my favorite haunts. Like I love the pier in Ballast Point.
Yes.
I like it because it's a restrictive space,
Right.
so that people have to be close to you, and they accept it. You're not
Right.
sneaking up on them. Nothing. I mean, one misstep and.
And I've seen some of your images there that are just amazing, really beautiful.
So I would go and I would get a picture there, and he would go like the next day
And try to recapture that
and
picture.
try to figure out where I was. And
Time
it's
of
like,
day?
no, that doesn't work, because in the end, everything you see is what you are prepared to see. If you want your photography to change, you have to change. Start drinking, get a girlfriend.
Change your perspective.
Yeah.
Look out another window.
You don't need to go anywhere. You don't need to go to an exotic place. I hardly photograph when I'm touristing. I'm just another tourist. And I mostly do selfies with Lydia. That's it.
Shout out to Lydia, who's listening to us somewhere today.
Yeah. And so let's talk a little bit about, because I'm concerned
Yeah, we're coming
about
up
our
on
clock.
time. Yeah, we got to get
Let's
to the
talk
shows.
about Art Taco
Okay.
Yes.
and your relationship to the art scene locally. But let's talk about Art Taco and how that began and what that was about.
How it began. About 20 years ago, I looked on the web for a blog that I could read about the local arts, figuring I could get more information than the Tribune. And I found Megan Bowler had a blog. Denise Gaston, our artist, had a blog. And there was a third one.
Mhm.
And I'm like, wow, this is... Megan's blog was exactly Creative Loafing's articles. Word for word, comma for comma. And Denise was good, but he didn't get out much. And I could do this. And in St. Pete, I saw the same thing I had already seen in Coconut Grove in '64. It was like a slingshot drawn.
Yes.
And it
Yes.
was ready to take off. And I could sense it. And I thought, wow.
You wanted to be ahead of that curve.
I had been there.
Yes.
I had seen it happen. So I said, I could do this. You know, the thing about when you find a void, you should fill it. I found Blogspot, and 2 days later, I opened the blog.
Were you his sole editor, or did you have
Oh,
contributors?
I
that-
like one-man bands.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't play well with others in the sandbox, Louis.
I'm just not that ambitious.
Yeah, well, you said that earlier. I mean,
I don't really want a
those are the
team.
bookends.
Right.
I don't have to worry about a team or anything. And to my surprise, the others weren't really doing a whole lot.
So you carried the mail. I can do it. Let me do it.
It caught on, and nobody was reviewing an actual piece of art.
That's the void you stepped into.
And if I just reviewed one thing in a gallery show, the gallery owner would write me a letter telling me how wonderful it was that we have somebody
Of course.
doing this. And it was like, okay. So it took off. Before long, Art Taco, we had 70, 80,000
Wow.
people. Most of them were in Europe.
Isn't
Interesting.
that fancy? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the reason is,
Where the appreciation for
Because-
art is dominant.
I mentioned St. Pete, and they were looking for St. Pete, Russia.
Matters not. They found you.
They found me.
And once they read you, if your articles were entertaining enough, and certainly they must have been,
Oh, several came and visited St. Pete.
as a result.
As a result.
So did you get a check from the St. Pete Chamber of Commerce? Come on, Luisito.
No, I
Roll
didn't-
that into some
I
profit.
didn't really want recognition.
Because you don't have the ambition, Louis. We got to have a conversation, Louis. We have to have a conversation.
Maybe, but
You're obviously a profound
set in my
artist.
ways.
Could some of those Europeans also though been people that were thinking of visiting here and they wanted
They
to know about the art
visited
scene?
here.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
And I had no problem scheduling time to show them around. And I always got wined and dined.
Mm-hmm.
But that was pretty much it. And then they would go back and they themselves would publicize St. Pete, Florida.
Is there a place in the area, the Bay Area, or specifically in Tampa, that you like to shoot? I mean, Ybor City seems like such a natural place
at the time, I was mostly in St. Pete because the St. Pete art it's still boiling.
Mm-hmm.
Tampa, you have a spot here, a spot there. Tampa is like a series of lightning fires. You know, in St. Pete, by virtue of its city planning,
Yes.
St. Pete, you have like a linear reef that connects all the galleries. In Tampa, you have this guy's garage up in Seminole Heights. You have something else there, or a restaurant that's showing art on the walls. But if you look at the map, it's like somebody threw a string of pearls onto it.
Absolutely. And you know, Tampa could learn so much from St. Pete in how they conduct this. Tampa fathers and Tampa planners. It's just it's night and day, the difference between the two communities.
And in Tampa, also, the art is very academic. The connections are academic. And it's got real stratification in an academic sense. In St. Pete, it's like the wilderness.
It's more bohemian, right?
They come in and out of the wilderness, you know, as individuals.
Right.
Big difference.
It's interesting. I wonder if that's a whole conversation there about the atmosphere and the environment. In Tampa, when I started getting involved as an artist in Tampa, what I found was that a lot of artists would get sort of good, and then they'd leave for New York.
Right.
And some of that had to do with USF, I think. It infused this kind of academic, you got to go big kind of approach. Community is not supportive, so I'm going to go big. I'm going to go to Chicago or New York. St. Pete, it's more laid back, and therefore it fertilizes that energy, don't you think?
Yes. St. Pete is really rich for emergence.
Yes.
Really rich.
Say that again to the people that are just now tuning in. And why have you waited so long to listen to Louis Gotardi? Because this has been a fascinating conversation. St. Pete is more about emergence in an organic way, right? Even if they're plein air artists, even if they just get an easel and they want to go out to the shore and paint the cottages, whatever, something that is original and unique. And that's what St. Pete has over Tampa, I think. And I love me some Tampa.
Yes.
But Tampa has more industrial roots, right? Tampa with its Ybor City and commerce and the port and driving economy. St. Pete has a little more laissez-faire, a little more laid back, a little more time to develop this artist's side.
Tampa is organizationally dependent. Everybody has to have a history. They have to have a family history. In St. Pete, just to cite one, there's an artist named I-Bombs. Who's I-Bombs? He was a nobody. 3 years ago, nobody knew who he was. He comes from Africa. Lands, his mother is in poverty. Nobody's ever seen him. He does one show, and he sells every single painting in that show.
When does that happen, Louis?
And
Never.
Rare, really rare. And then the same gallery gave him another show because it's
Of course, sold out.
He sold out the second one. Then other galleries began to steal him.
Yes. Yeah.
So you don't have that in Tampa.
Our very own local Banksy. Our very own Banksy.
You just don't have that.
Where could we see your work, Louis? Because as we're coming to the close of the show, and I can't believe how fast this has gone by, can people, now that we've whetted their appetite completely see your work, where can we see?
Mostly on Facebook. I haven't done a show in a long time. The last one I did was David got me to do a thing for FAMOPA. And
let's say that's David Audette.
Yeah. Thank you.
And I ended up doing that. Before that, I hadn't shown anything for 5 years. Again, it's the ambition thing. It's so cerebral and so intriguing for me to photograph. It's like a dialogue with a ghost or something else.
Is that your abuela coming through, maybe? I don't know. Is that...
I have no idea.
Is that, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah,
is
it
that
could be.
some of that? But are you still raising your camera to your eye, and are you still participating in that expression?
Yes. And I'm not. I mean, commercially, it's very simple. You know what to shoot, what the client pays for. It can't get any simpler than that.
Right.
You might get good at it. You might please the client. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's what it's about.
Revenue stream.
But I'm not at that end. I mean, I did that. I did weddings.
Certainly
I did
not
portraits.
at this point in your life, right? I mean,
I'm 75 years old, man. I'm kind of really thinking about things.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, you're in the fine wine, the very best of the fine wine stage of your life. That's what I think happens to people as we see them becoming sort of disengaged at some level. In fact, what's happening is they're sort of flourishing in their own enlightenment and their awareness. It's a great time to be, in a way, as your knees go bad. But
the frivolity falls away, right?
Yeah.
Right, Joe?
Yeah. So you are, let me just say before this happens, that you are now attending, you must be, I mean, there is nobody attending more shows in the area than you do. I mean, you are absolutely that person.
There's a few of us. I would say 83 Degrees has Tony Wong Palms, whom I see a lot.
Okay.
So I know he's doing almost every show.
But is he coming to the Crest building in Ybor City?
Yes and no.
Okay.
He doesn't follow it. I mean, I'm like 5 minutes from my house.
Right.
So it's no big deal coming on Thursdays. And I photograph Ybor a lot. Mm-hmm. I mean, you think about it, it's only a few blocks, but I'm just obsessed with Ybor.
It's visually rich, the backs of buildings, alleys, perspectives. Yeah, it's a visually rich area. I get it.
It's oozing history. I mean,
Right.
it's just...
Absolutely.
Living history in many ways. And I think we're, a lot of us who have been here boots on the ground for a hot minute, you know, there's a sort of, I sense there's a sort of revival of wanting to get to know the stories that maybe we didn't hear in our younger days. I know I miss my abuelos, and they were a part of that scene in its earliest days. I wish I'd had an opportunity to talk to them as a more enlightened young man, because they left us pretty early.
Right.
But they left it all there. Just go ahead and do an archaeological scratch around. It's all there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Before we get too far
Please,
in,
please. We got a couple
I just
minutes
want to
left.
say, because I always get up against it.
Yes.
And I want to make sure I get in. Folks, if you are listening to this fascinating conversation, please stay tuned, sit where you are, and listen for Jim Bannon with It's the Music coming up right after our show. He is the guru of good vibes.
There you go. I like that. The guru of good vibes. Louis, did we leave anything out? Is there anything in about a minute that we have to go that you'd like to say? Listen, the invitation is open and standing. If you'd like to come back and continue to flesh out this conversation, I think we just scratch the surface.
I would be glad.
Yeah, well, we're grateful. Thank you did you have fun? Did you have
Yes,
fun
I
today?
did.
Thank you for coming in and sharing your story with us, a little piece of it. I find that Cuban Exodus part of it incredibly fascinating. You know, we've all seen The Godfather Part 2. You know, Fredo, but you're still my brother. You know, with the airplane leaving at midnight. But there's so much more that you can tell us. So please come back anytime. And again, we'll have a conversation about flags, the importance therein.
Okay.
Right? For all of you that have been listening today to us here on The Conversation, we want to also encourage you to be safe as things continue to devolve here weather-wise. Make sure that you stay safe with your families.
Yes, please, everyone.
If you're interested in buying those radios, we need you to come by the studio to pick them up. They're just $30, and they could save your life. I mean, quite seriously, it keeps you connected. These are rechargeable, hand-chargeable radios available for $30 today.
And by the way, you never know when the electricity is going to go out, not just because of a storm. So it happens all the time.
Keep them in your car.
It's a great thing to have.
Keep them in your car with you as you travel as well.
Absolutely.
After our show today, Megan Bowman, our news reporter here at WMNF, will give you a hurricane update. Also, Chris is doing the news, not Megan. I'm just being handed a note in real time. That's right. We'll do it live. We'll do it live.
That's right.
As we famously can here on the show. Joe, this has been a great show, buddy. I
Yeah.
want to say thank you to you personally for introducing me to Louis and bringing him into our world.
You notice that throughout the conversation, Louis has a rhythm, and it's very metaphorical language he uses. It's very image-oriented, and I always love conversations with Louis, and I knew that would come through on the show today.
And brother, I could listen to him talk all day long. Next time, Luisito, we're going to have a café con leche together and flesh out a little bit more of this conversation. Thanks again for watching and for listening today. We are WMNF Tampa, The Conversation. La
Sharing our stories connects us.
I think you would like.